For thousands of years, humanity didn't believe in facts. It believed in stories. Stories that told us who we are, why we exist, who has the right to rule over us, who the enemy is, who the hero is. But there's one question almost no one dares to ask. How many of these stories are actually true? And how many are simply narratives we inherited without ever questioning them? If that question makes you a little uncomfortable, good. It means you just started waking up. Before a man obeys a law, before he fights for a flag, before he sacrifices his entire life for an idea, he first has to believe a story. And maybe the greatest power in human history was never weapons. It was the power to decide what people consider true. Today, we're opening that box. We'll see how the greatest empires, religions, democracies, and economies in history were all built on one single discovery. Fear keeps a population obedient for a while, but belief keeps it obedient for centuries. Welcome to the truth behind the story. The great empires weren't built with armies alone. They were built with ideas. The pharaoh wasn't just a man with power. He was presented as the living link between mortals and the gods. Question the pharaoh, and you questioned the divine order of the universe itself. The kings of Europe didn't rule just because they had armies. They ruled because millions of people had been convinced their authority was simply the natural order of things. And Rome? Rome never said, "We're conquering territory." It said, "We're bringing civilization and order." Every great power in history created a narrative that justified its own existence, because power, on its own, isn't enough. It needs something far more dangerous: acceptance. Fear works temporarily, belief works for centuries. The words changed over time. Divine right, civilizing mission, national interest. But the mechanism underneath stayed exactly the same. Make the existing order look natural. Almost 2,000 years ago, the Roman poet Juvenal wrote two words that were never forgotten: panem et circenses, bread and circuses. The logic was brutally simple. A population that's fed and entertained is far easier to keep calm. Roman citizens temporarily forgot their problems while watching a gladiator fight. The forms changed, the mechanism didn't. Today we carry a device in our pocket that contains entertainment, news, social validation, advertising, and endless comparison with everyone else. The Colosseum doesn't need walls anymore. It fits on a 5-inch screen. The question isn't whether entertainment is bad. Human beings need joy. That hasn't changed. The real question is darker. When does entertainment stop being a choice and start being a way to forget how to think? From the moment we're born, we learn a very specific way of seeing the world. What success means, what failure means, what we should want, what we should fear. Most of our choices feel completely personal. But how many of them were shaped before we even got the chance to think about them? Our desires, our ambitions, our opinions. How much of all that is truly ours? And how much is simply the result of the stories we were taught to believe since childhood? We don't perceive the world directly. We see it through filters: education, family, religion, culture, media, social values. That doesn't mean everything is a lie. It means something harder to swallow, that all of us only ever see one piece of reality. And the big question is, who decides which piece we get to see? Religion has been one of the most powerful forces in human history. It gave meaning, it gave moral codes, it gave community, it gave hope to people who had nothing else. But many times it was also used as a tool of power. Because when a leader presents his own commands as the commands of a god, questioning them becomes nearly impossible. The question here isn't, is faith a lie? That's the wrong question, and a dangerous one. The real, deeper question is, what happens when the human need for meaning meets the human need for power? For thousands of years, power had one face: king, emperor, army. Today, Power hides somewhere else, in financial networks, in technological infrastructure, in information, in access to capital. Money isn't just a means of exchange anymore. It's a vote of power. Whoever controls the resources largely controls the decisions made around them, even if you never see it happening with your own eyes. Democracy is presented as the peak of human political evolution, and in many ways it might genuinely be the best system we've ever built. But history is more complicated than we were taught. Ancient Athens gave the world the idea of citizen participation, yet a huge part of the population was completely excluded from that participation. Even the most democratic societies, history shows, can face propaganda, manipulation, the concentration of power in a few hands, disproportionate influence from wealthy groups. Democracy doesn't only die by force at the hands of dictators. It can weaken silently, day by day, the moment citizens stop thinking critically. And here we arrive at the darkest point of this story. The most effective form of control isn't telling you, don't do this. It's making sure you never even think to do it. Not restricting your body, but your imagination. Because a person who can't even imagine a different world will never try to change it. Maybe the greatest prison in human history was never a wall made of stone. It was an idea that no one ever dared to question. Because a person who never examines his own beliefs may be living inside a prison without ever seeing the bars. But careful, because there's a trap on the other side too. A person who believes he already knows the whole truth can become just as easy a target for manipulation. Real freedom isn't found in replacing one story with another. It's found in having the courage to examine every story, even the one you were told to never question. Maybe humanity's greatest battle was never between peoples, between nations, between armies. It was between ignorance and knowledge, between comfort and the search for truth, between acceptance and questioning. You don't need to believe every theory you hear. You don't need to reject every institution around you. You only need to do what sparked every great change in human history. Ask the question someone doesn't want you to ask. Why do I believe what I believe? If this video made you rethink even one idea you held before, subscribe to the channel. Because here, at The Truth Behind the Story, we don't tell you what to believe. We show you why it might be worth asking.